Hey everybody, it's Captain Kyle and I have the new Studio Series 86 Wheelie. Yes, basically the Jar Jar Binks of the Transformers universe. And I figured it would be a good time to go through the evolution of Wheelie, from Generation 1 to his final form. Well, this ain't Pokemon, so we'll say current form. But we'll check out the toys for this character, who was introduced in the best Transformers movie of all time. The first one, the animated one, the one that traumatized an entire fandom. You know, Transformers the movie from 1986. And it didn't traumatize him because of Wheelie, amazingly. And we'll go over all the versions. Be right back. Now we'll start with this one, the Generation 1 version, and his tech spec lists him as a survivalist, which might bring you visions of him in a fully stocked bunker, filled with tons of guns and 5 years worth of food. It also says he's the sole survivor from a party of intergalactic colonists who crash landed on Earth, which is messed up and incorrect because I found him on Quintessons, unless he hitched a ride, I don't know. Though with the way he rhymes, I wouldn't be surprised if the colonists crashed on purpose because they couldn't take it anymore. And we're not even gonna look at his stats because it lists his firepower as 7, and he has a fucking slingshot. So we're not putting a lot of trust in that. Anyways, this is the first one that came out, the 1986 mini vehicle. It's the only new mold in the line at that point for mini vehicles, and it's not exactly the best. Some try to show him with his visor forward like that, like the baseball cap like he has in the movie. Some flip it up as it's shown in the catalog. It's not the best spot I've ever seen. Now, as far as articulation, his arms move back and forth, woohoo. His legs can move independently, but he has no bending at the knees. He has no ability to do a split, not even gonna try a Jean-Claude Van Damme. He has none of that. If he tries to kick forward, it's like kicking a can. You know, he can pretty much like shuffle his feet. He can kick backwards, but you know, it's not very good. And he's kind of a goofy looking bot altogether. His face is underneath his canopy, so not the best mold I've ever seen. When you transform him into vehicle mode, and I'm gonna do the vehicle mode with each one and then we'll do size comparisons at the end. But there he is. His vehicle mode actually looks pretty close to what was in the movie. And it rolls. It's got the nice rub sign right there, the Autobot symbol, so he can double verify. Not a lot of kibble on the bottom, but it's a little car. It's not earthly at origin. I have not seen, this looks like a Pinto on a really bad day maybe, but yeah, there he is in vehicle mode. Not my favorite of the mini vehicles of that time. However, they did actually reissue him in a pack with Kup and Recoil, as I recall. That was in 2005. That was reissued in Japan. There was a slight difference in color, and he actually had a gray face to match what he was on the show and in the movie. But unless you purchased him with Kup and his Target Master, you'd have to get him like separately. I don't happen to have that version, but enjoy the pictures. But just 4 years later, in 2009, they came out with the Legends class Wheelie, and there he is in all his wheeliness. He's actually a better looking bot than the original, I definitely must say. If you look closely at his face, he's got the little visor, it's almost like a baseball cap. He actually has a non-functional slingshot. Hi, Sky. Did you come for the slingshot? It's molded into his door/shoulder. So you can't remove it, you can't use it. It doesn't really do anything. It's just there. As far as posability goes, his legs cannot separate far enough to do a Jean-Claude Van Damme, but they are on a type of ball joint. He can kick forward. He can not really bend at the knee in the normal direction. Part of his transformation, he can bend in the wrong direction. And his feet, as part of the transformation, will move a little bit, so you can move them back and forth if you wanted to have him in a more dynamic pose, possibly. There we go, more dynamic. His arms move back and forth. He can shrug, right, Sky? He can shrug. And they move forward and back. His head does not turn, but he does a weird thing where he can bow, like he's taking karate class. Yes, sensei! But he doesn't twist at the waist. And in order to get him to bow, you kind of gotta deform him. You gotta kind of pull up. In his normal transformed mode, he can't bow. He could bend backwards, but Yes, I love you too, Sky. But overall, an improvement on the original. He is a Legends class. The transformation is not very complex. And he becomes what is known as a junk planet speeder. I'm not sure what that is. Speeder makes me think of Star Wars, but then again, you know, Misa rhyming home. You're gonna make me groan. That didn't quite rhyme, I know, I'm sorry. I'm not Wheelie, nor do I wanna be. But it's a decent mode. It does not really resemble the one from the movie all that much, but you know, definitely an improvement on the character. In 2009, Henkei made him much more yellow, and they packaged him with Atoms, aka Cosmos, and Warpath. But still, not exactly the same as the show, and the yellow coloring actually could make him like a different character, like maybe Scrounge. But then came the biggest wheelie ever. This wheelie, who was released in Asia and eventually was a Toys R Us exclusive, is based on the Reveal the Shield version of Jazz. Different head, obviously. And he has a slingshot. Yes, a slingshot. It's a little itty bitty blue slingshot. There it is. It's got a little post on it so he can actually hold it like a gun if he wanted to use it as a gun, or he could hold it by the handle and it was an actual slingshot. But the packaging showed him actually with Jazz's gun, so whoopsie. Now, as far as posability for this guy, almost can do a full Jean-Claude Van Damme. If I go toes up, and yeah, pretty much Jean-Claude Van Damme. So much more posable, not quite as small of a toy as the previous versions. He can kick forward, he can do side kicks, though if you're doing the side kick, there is something with the plastic on the top of his legs that might interfere a little bit. Just be a little bit careful. His arms can move in many directions, but they can't really go straight up. He can go forward and back, bends at the elbow. His wrists twist. He can twist a little bit at the waist because that's part of the transformation, but with this back part down, you would actually have to lift up that and then you could twist it all the way around. But when he's fully in robot mode with the roof of the car on his back, it kind of interferes with that. And you can, you know, basically make him, you know, flap. His head does turn and, you know, pretty much all directions. You can make him, you know, be possessed like in The Exorcist. Now, some interesting additional things is he actually has the speakers on his doors and they pop off really easy, as do Jazz's. But just like Jazz, he has the speakers. You can use this hinge here very carefully. I would be careful because, again, it's transparent plastic. I don't want to break him, even if it is wheelie. But you can move the speakers forward. He can then do some poetry slam or something like that. I mean, he's not as into music as Blaster or Jazz, so, you know, but you can bring forward those speakers. So, and they pop off so fucking easily. Kind of irritating. But they're there. I don't see much of a use for them canonically with Wheelie here, but they're included. So a much beefier robot mode, much more impressive of a robot. Let's check out the vehicle mode, which as you might imagine looks nothing like the movie version. So there he is in vehicle mode. The totally unnecessary and irritating speakers on his doors make it a pain in the ass to transform. He does have weapon storage on the bottom, though because it was meant for Jazz's gun and not a slingshot, it actually kind of sticks a little bit out the bottom. It's actually a pretty clever transformation, and he actually looks like a Earth car, not one that I would drive, but it looks like an Earth car. And yeah, I'm not even sure if I have him transformed exactly correctly with the way the speakers are configured, but there he is, best I can do. And yeah, it's not a bad vehicle. It's his most Earth-like to date. And yeah, that's Wheelie, the biggest one, the biggest wheelie ever. Okay, that's a little dramatic. Moving along, in 2016, we got yet another version of Wheelie. This one is from Titans Return. He is not a headmaster, as many of the Titans Returns ones were, but he does have a gimmick that involves them. Before we go into the gimmick, let's talk about robot mode. Yes, he can do, this is the first one to do the most easy Jean-Claude Van Damme ever, toes up for that matter. He bends at the knee, he can kick in all directions, side kicks, no problem. His arms can move in various directions. He can still kind of shrug a little bit, bends at the elbow. Fists do not turn, and he does bend, or twist rather, at the waist, but because of his transformation and interfering parts, well, you can get it. If you wiggle it, you can get his legs totally backwards. I don't know that you'd want to, but that is part of the transformation, so he does turn at the waist. And he turns, his head turns. He also can pop open his chest to receive the Matrix. No, I would not want Wheelie to be leader. But overall, a decent version of the bot. He actually looks, again, a little more movie accurate than the last couple. Pretty posable. So not a bad version of this character, if you're into that kind of thing. Now, let's get him into his vehicle mode. And other than the Generations, this guy is actually the biggest of the Wheelies thus far. And there is a reason for that. The transformation is actually kind of clever, though also kind of exacting, because you need to like push things into certain posts or else it doesn't really hold together very well. Now, he does not come with any weapons, but he does have these 5mm posts on the sides. I don't know why they're there, but you can potentially add stuff to him, but he rolls well enough, better than a lot of the cars. And his gimmick, if you actually lift up his canopy, you can put a little Titan Master inside. So I got a little Titan Master right here. Ooh, little guy, came with one of the sets, and I can seat him inside, though I have to say, putting him in backwards is probably the easier way. Or folding his legs up all the way is probably easiest. Actually, you can lift up the back part, so let's see if we can put him in the seated position easily with the back part. Yeah, seems to work well enough. So he can actually have a passenger, which is kind of neat because not all Transformers can actually accommodate any other passengers. So he's got a Titan Master inside, pretty cool, and not exactly, but closer to his movie form. Now, in the same year, was 2016, in Japan, they made a version of him that was a little more painted in orange, and it was released in a 2-pack with Go Shooter, who is Titan Master and could actually ride inside. So it was a match made in Japan. However, the next version of Wheelie was also packaged with someone else. He was packaged with Studio Series 86 Grimlock. Me, Grimlock, have a Studio Series. And Wheelie, him friend. So this is the version of Wheelie that comes with Grimlock, and he is designed to sit on Grimlock's back. He comes with a slingshot, a little Y-shaped, tiny little, kind of hard to see, but there it is, that fits directly into his hand. Now, the problem with this guy, one, he does not transform, so I'm not showing you in alt mode. His arms move, his head moves, his legs can actually go at the top of the thigh, you know, basically the hip joint. He can move in that direction, but his knees, which are bent, do not unbend, which gives you some interesting options. You could put together him as taking a shit in the woods, Wheelie. Or if you put the knees together, trying not to pee, Wheelie. If you put him on his knees, he's begging, please, can I get some more? More what? I don't know. Can I get an Energon goodie? I will, as long as I'm down here. But anyway, that's sick and disgusting. I like it. Yeah, as far as standing him up, it's difficult to stand him up because of him being in the seated position. He can ride on Grimlock, which sounds pretty sick to me, but I guess that's why he's such a good friend with the Dinobots. If you wanted him in the classic one-knee superhero landing position, he could kind of do that as long as you hold him, otherwise he falls. So this is not even as good as an Action Master. I'm sorry. I really wish that they had just decided to put the Studio 86 version of Wheelie out with Grimlock and somehow figure out a way that he could just ride him. Again, that sounds so bad. But there he is, no vehicle mode. So, 2022, we finally get a bot-accurate Wheelie with Studio 86. And it's still in the box, so let me take it out of the box. Knife. There he is on his card. I'm looking in here, and he does have a slingshot. A very, very small, itty-bitty slingshot. Though slightly bigger than the one that came with the Wheelie with Grimlock. And get these plastic shits off. You know, I kind of miss the thicker ones that were kind of really long twist ties, because then you could use them in Beast Machines as like part of Megatron's attachment to Cybertron. There he is, he fell out. All right, the final version of Wheelie. And there he is in his bot mode, and he fell over. There he goes again in his bot mode, balanced so that he is not falling over. Let's give him his little slingshot so he can really get us with that 7 firepower. So examining Wheelie, he can do almost a toes up Jean-Claude Van Damme, but you know, he's slightly bent. So yeah, it doesn't quite allow for that, but he bends at the knee. His toes can kind of point. I think that's part of the transformation, but he does not have the ankle swivel as, yeah, it does not. So you can't really be that posable with him. Though he's not too bad. Can kick in all directions. Does he twist at the waist? No, he does not apparently do that. His arms can move back and forth, and he does appear to have elbows. Though he's got this little plastic piece that when you straighten out his arm, it pops in. I imagine it's part of the transformation. I imagine if you do it too much, it will wear down and you could go blind. Oh, that's something different, the blindness part. But his arms can go all the way up, all the way down, to the side. The fists do not turn. The head, though, does turn, so he can look around in all directions to see the people that he's annoying with his rhymes. Overall, not a bad figure. Looks very much like the one in the movie. Check out the vehicle mode. So there he is in vehicle mode. Go a little closer. And it's got elements of the 86 movie, but the nose is definitely not the same. You can see his hands, his fists in the back here in his vehicle mode, so not super thrilled with that part. He does have weapon storage. You can put his little slingshot into a post under here, and that's kind of neat, so you don't lose that if you keep him in vehicle mode. He rolls okay. I've seen better. And his canopy itself, well, his head's in there, so he doesn't have room for a Titan Master head. But he's a vehicle. He's very close. I don't know what they could have done differently, because I'm not an engineer, to make this nose a little bit longer. I imagine there could be a way, but there he is. He's not bad. He's reminiscent of the movie. The robot mode is spot on. What do you think, Sky? You're here to give your input, I know. So since they're all in vehicle mode except the one that doesn't have a vehicle mode, let me first do a comparison of size. Sky is the best cat ever. You know, of course I say that to all my cats. So the size is very similar between the G1 and the 2009 Legends class. And obviously much bigger when we get to the Generations Reveal the Shield. I used to be Jazz mold. Titans Return, a little bit bigger, though obviously smaller than this one. And then we get back to about the same size as the original with the Studio 86. This guy just stands back here and, well, he tries to stand and he falls over. Woohoo! So his evolution, he increased in size and he's back to interesting evolution. Now Sky, of course, has decided that she wants to be right in range with the close-up camera just to make it difficult for when I have to display these guys. She is the best cat ever, but also a pain in my ass. Which is cats everywhere. Yes, I know. So there they are, all in robot mode. Yeah, obviously the size hasn't changed too much, except of course for the big boy, the Generations Reveal a Shield version. And I have to hold up, you know, the Studio 86 Grimlock companion, because otherwise he just falls. But with the transforming ones, I do have to say that the Titans Returns, not the most stable in standing, but that is the evolution of Wheelie. And I have to say, he's not my favorite character, but he is a character, and there was a BotCon comic where he kind of redeemed himself. Him and Daniel both blew themselves up to, you know, save people, and that traumatized Darcy. Whole big story. Check it out. And here we have Sky, who might knock these guys over at any second, so I'd better finish this up relatively quickly. So the Studio 86, the new version, is available out there in a lot of retail stores. I'll put the link down in the description. The other guys are pretty much on eBay. The Studio 86 Grimlock might still be available in some retail stores, but if you're gonna buy Grimlock, don't buy him for this. Trust me, do not buy him for this. Not worth it. But if you're a Wheelie fan, there's also the ones that are not standing here, which are in slightly different colors, but same molds from Japan. I don't happen to have those at this time. But stop playing with my Titan Masters. But while you're deciding what you want to do with these guys, we have a great video over here if you like non-Earth modes, which is the Origin Bumblebee versus the Fall of Cybertron Bumblebee. Great video, you should check it out. We'll see you over there. And of course, if you haven't already, you can subscribe, you can like this video, all the stuff. Super thanks would be awesome. We'll see you next time. As always, have fun and good hunting.